Konami, you should have never unbanned this Yu-Gi-Oh card. Seriously, what were you thinking? Salamangreat Gazelle 3? Now Salamangreat is the best deck in the world. Today, big dog, I'm gonna be showing you my updated Salamangreat deck profile post the September 25th Forbidden list. It's completely crazy how one card changes everything. I think that Salamangreat does have the potential to be one of the top Yu-Gi-Oh decks, and in this video, I'm going to explain why. But without further ado, let's jump on in. So Salamangreat has been absolutely one of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh decks since its inception. What I love about this deck is that it's really good for players jumping into the game, as not only does it teach you how to link summon, it also teaches you the complexities of using powerful cards to be able to stop your opponent. Of course, big dog, this particular deck is not only built to stop some of the top decks upcoming in the September 25th ban list meta, but also to be able to show you how powerful this deck is and give you tips on what to do with your Salamangreat deck profile. Of course, big dog, I will also be putting additional test hands on my Patreons as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. And if you are wondering where we get this beautiful mat, then you can always go to TheCaliEffect.com and cop yours today while supplies last, as well as some other cool things. Let's go ahead and begin with the cards that you optimally want to start off with first. One of the most important cards for Salamangreat actually just so happened to come out in the new Legendary Duelist set. We play 3 copies of Salamangreat Fire, which unfortunately just skyrocketed in price like how we predicted in our video a couple of weeks ago. The reason why is because Salamangreat Gazelle came off, but more importantly, this card is one of the best cards in the entire deck, as it gives you access to every single one of your Salamangreat cards or monsters inside of this deck, which allows you to be able to play. Also, if you are playing really degenerate cards, like giving your opponent a Nightmare Corrupt or Ibly or stuff like that, you can still use Salamangreat Fire to destroy your own monsters so they can't crash the Ibly in two. So that actually, its second effect, is pretty good. There's some degen stuff that you can play inside of this deck. Unfortunately, outside of Salamangreat Fire, everything else is relatively cheap. Now, the other card you may want to start your turn with is Salamangreat Foxy. And normally when you build a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, you want to commit 5 monsters that probably will take away your normal summon to be able to start. And the reason why Foxy is so good is because it gives you the potential to dig into other Salamangreat monsters, but another cool thing about it is that it doesn't have to be your normal summon. Getting this card to the graveyard can actually summon itself to the side of the field, and then allows you to be able to destroy pesky continuous spell and trap cards, like if your opponent wanted to use something like There Can Be Only One on you, or maybe even a skill drain. This card actually allows you to be able to get rid of it, since its effect activates in the graveyard and then it brings itself to the field. Next is going to be our extender cards, cards that we typically don't want to normal summon, but allow us to get into the flow of our combo. Thankfully, 3 copies of Salamangreat Gazelle finally off the ban list, and it changes so much for this deck. Because of Salamangreat Gazelle, we actually have so many ways to be able to go into our combo, but more importantly, we don't have to worry about this card getting banished or this card getting disrupted and us having to retrieve this card every single time. Really good that it did come off the ban list. Some other extenders are 3 copies of Spinny, 2 copies of Jag-Jaguar. I think that Jag-Jaguar is appropriate to play at 2 copies when you're playing Pot of Desires, so spoiler alert. But Jag-Jaguar is a really important card here. There's also Salamangreat Falco and Salamangreat Weasel. Let me go ahead and move these. These monsters are the monsters that you don't typically want to normal summon, but if you can gain their effects to special summon themselves to the side of the field, it helps so much for being able to make the particular link board that you want to do. Now, that's all for the main monsters that we play here. I think it's really important to talk about something that's updated from my last profile. We play 3 copies of Salamangreat Circle and 3 copies of Cynet Mining. Now, the reason why I've decided to play Cynet Mining in this particular deck is because not only did I acknowledge that Salamangreat Fire is one of the best cards that you can get into, but now with Salamangreat Gazelle, you have 12 ways to be able to get into any of your cards inside of your deck, which is completely crazy. That's actually what is required for your deck to be one of the more powerful decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, is if you can hit that sweet spot of 12 ways to get into a particular card, it makes your deck extremely searchable. If I remember correctly, it gives you like an 86% chance of having your combo, which is like amazing in any given situation, especially if your combo is about a 1-card combo, which is pretty much what this deck does is 1 and 2 card combos. So that's the reason why I decided to up the count of play 3 copies of Signet Mining. And I do think that it is correct to play 3 Signet, 3 Circle, 3 Gazelle, and 3 Salamangreat Fire, even with Gazelle off the ban list, because even if you don't have Gazelle in hand, using Signet Mining to discard a Salamangreat monster still will trigger the effect of Gazelle to summon itself to the side of the field, which is really, really cool. The power cards, these are the cards that your deck needs to play to probably overwhelm your opponent. Consistency is always good, but if you don't have enough power, you're not doing anything. Your deck's just a consistent whatever it is. With that being said, there's 1 copy of Sanctuary, 1 copy of Will. These cards, Sanctuary is mandatory in every Salamangreat deck. Will is really, really good at special summoning monsters. There's 2 copies of Salamangreat Roar and 1 copy of Rage. I play 2 copies of Roar is because normally when you go full combo, you activate the effect of Roar to set itself to the side of the field, and once you use it, it's gone. There'll be times where the game does get a little bit grindy, and getting into that second Roar is actually really, really important for securing the game. There's then 2 copies of Pot of Desires. In this particular deck, we play 3 of almost everything important. There's almost no cards in this deck that would get consistently banished by Pot of Desires that we would miss, unless for some reason you consistently Pot of Desires and banish your Rage and both of your Salamangreat Roars every single time without being able to full combo. A lot of the times, these cards get us into our other cards that allow us to play the game, or force our opponent to stop this, which allows us to play still. So let's go ahead and talk about our disruption cards. In order to have a successful Yu-Gi-Oh deck nowadays, you need about anywhere between 10 to 14 disruptive cards, but that's what Salamangreat does so well. You play about 14 disruptive cards in this particular deck, and some of them are even recurable. Let's go ahead and start off with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring here. This is the recurable hand trap, and it's one of the most generic and considered sometimes one of the best hand traps in the game because it stops cards like Triple Tactics Thrust and Triple Tactics Talent, but it's also really good against decks like Labyrinth and Branded, which you can expect to see more of, and even Unchained being able to stop their trap cards from special summoning. There's 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, the only hand trap that's good right now that can dodge Triple Tactics Talent, and I'm actually trying out 2 copies of DD Crow. I think DD Crow will be really, really important going forward. In theory, it does not have a bad matchup, but if you're not liking DD Crow, you could just drop these 2 cards and it is a 40-card Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Another card that I think is really, really good in Salamangreat, if you guys can't afford it, don't worry, there are replacements. Kirakira the Divine Carnate, in theory, is amazing. Not only is it recurable through your Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, it also allows you to be able to break your opponent's board. Of course, big dog, if you cannot afford Divine Carnate Kirakira, you can always swap these out for Doggerin the Mad Flame Kaiju. That card still allows you to be able to get rid of an opponent's monster, and if you're summoning it on Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, you can still get a fire monster from your deck to your hand. To finish up, we played an even balance of hand traps and going second disruptive cards. I still think that Book of Eclipse is really, really good, especially when you want to get rid of your opponent's DDD Wave King Caesar, or if you want to stop your opponent from using Pearly Leap to turn their Pearly monster into Noir. This card is also just incredibly good in this deck because we play Lynx and our monsters won't be flipped face down with Book of Eclipse. And lastly, it's Triple Tactics Talent. I actually think that Triple Tactics Talent is a weakness in decks where you can't use all 3 effects. Fortunately enough, I do play cards in my deck or my extra deck to be able to link off my opponent's monster if I steal it. And I think if you're not playing, or if you can gain all 3 effects of Triple Tactics Talent, which the only effect that you probably can't is taking your opponent monster and utilizing it, then you shouldn't be playing Triple Tactics Talent. In this deck, we fixed that. Moving on to the extra deck, big boys. This extra deck is really hard to build. Like, extra decks for Salamangreat have become so tight and so convoluted, it's incredibly hard. But let's go ahead and start off. Of course, there's the Access Code Talker. This is the card that you need to play in your Salamangreat deck. This is a lot of times how you're going to win the game. 2 copies of Salamangreat Raging Phoenix. This gets you into your Salamangreat Spawn and Trap cards. Only 1 copy of Heat Leo. I wish I could play more, but unfortunately, really tight on the extra deck space. Transcode, Decode Talker, Heat Soul, Update Jammer. I'm iffy on this card, but I mean, it still makes your Access Code Talker really beefy. Hida is my Triple Tactics Talent target because I can take my opponent's monster. I can then use it with a fire monster into Hida, which gives me access into my Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf and then other plays, even in my Salamangreat Rage sometimes. There's 2 copies of Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf if you need a third. A lot of times you're not playing the deck as optimally as you should. 1 copy of Splash Mage is the card I wanted to play 2 copies of. 2 copies of Balinks. This is where the deck kind of does, like 3 Balinks does come up sometimes. 1 copy of Link Kribo. I think that this card is really good at Unchained in Labyrinth. If it wasn't, I'd be playing the Link Decoder, the Link 1 monster, because it does give you easier access to Access Care. And 1 copy of Salamangreat Mirage Stallion. This deck was really, really hard to build. It's really hard to construct that extra deck for this particular deck, but let me show you guys a couple of test hands before I bounce them to my Patreon. All right, big dog, so here we are on to our test hands. I really hope we get to show you how powerful this deck is and how consistent this deck can be. It's really, really fun to be able to show that Salamangreat is one of the better decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. We're going to draw Will, Salamangreat Weasel, DD Crow, Salamangreat Fire, and a Salamangreat Gazelle. This is actually a pretty decent hand. I'm going to go ahead and start off with summoning Salamangreat Fire, and in this particular case, I think Salamangreat Fire's best asset would be able to search the Salamangreat Spinny because we have full combo here. I can then turn my Salamangreat Fire into a Salamangreat Balinks, triggering the effect of Gazelle to summon itself to the side of the field, and Balinks to be able to search our field spell in Salamangreat Sanctuary. Salamangreat Gazelle will then activate to be able to send from the deck to the graveyard that Salamangreat Roar, and then I'll use Salamangreat Spinny to discard, and then Salamangreat Spinny's effect to summon itself. Spinny and Gazelle will be used for an Exceed summon into Salamangreat Mirage Stallion, and Mirage Stallion will detach the Gazelle. There are actually combo lines where we can summon the Gazelle to our opponent's side of the field and bounce it back. I think this is one of them. We'll detach to be able to special summon Salamangreat Jaguar to the field. Yeah, I definitely think this is a combo line that we can take advantage of. I can special summon Salamangreat Weasel because I control I have 2 Salamangreat monsters in my graveyard. I'm actually going to go ahead and link off my Balinks and my Weasel here. We're going to link summon into Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. I'll trigger the effect of Weasel. I will special summon Salamangreat Gazelle to my opponent's side of the field where Sunlight Wolf points to, and then I'll put Weasel to the bottom of the deck, or is it to get shuffled? Place this card to the bottom of your deck, and then we'll draw a Salamangreat Roar. We didn't need the Salamangreat Roar, but I guess that's cool. We'll then trigger the effect of Sunlight Wolf to be able to add Salamangreat Fire to our hands, and then we can just straight up link summon. We're locked into only fires, or I would have done some crazy things here. We could just straight link summon with all 4 of these monsters into our Salamangreat Raging Phoenix. Now, we want to trigger the effect of our Salamangreat Mirage Stallion here. We'll bounce the Salamangreat Gazelle back into our hand, and then we'll finish up by activating our Salamangreat Sanctuary. We can use the Raging Phoenix for a link summon into another Raging Phoenix, and that will allow me to be able to add the Salamangreat Rage and set the Salamangreat Roar because we second link summon. So in this situation, we did not actually use the effect of our Salamangreat Jaguar. You could use it to return the Sunlight Wolf to summon itself, and then make a boom. So return this to summon this, and then leave it like that. Unfortunately, we're fired locked, or I would have loved to summon the Link Kribo to prevent evenly match, but this is still a really, really good board, guys. We still have a Salamangreat Rage, a Salamangreat Roar, a DD Crow, and we have tons and tons of follow-up. I wish we would have drawn more disruptive cards, but sometimes that's just how it be. Signet Mining, Fire, Foxy, Spinny, Kirakara. This is a god hand. Like, this hand's ridiculous. I don't even want to show you guys that one. That one's way too much sauce, guys. You just Signet Mining and then just combo you just go off on that hand, right? We're gonna get DD Crow, Gazelle, Eclipse, Gazelle, Sanctuary. This is actually not a good hand, and I'm actually gonna show you how to play around this hand. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start off by normal summoning Gazelle. Gazelle then sends Salamangreat Spinny to the graveyard. Spinny summons, and then we Exceed. We Exceed into Mirage Stallion. We detach the Gazelle, and we use that to be able to summon Salamangreat Fire. Salamangreat Fire's effect activates. We get Salamangreat Weasel. We link off the fire into a Salamangreat Balinks. Unfortunately, no effect. We can then special summon the Weasel to our side of the field. And to be honest, we're pretty decent. We can use both the Weasel and the Balinks for a link summon. We can link summon into the Sunlight Wolf, trigger the effect of Weasel, hope to God to draw something, guys. Holy, that's not good. We'll summon the Gazelle, then we'll add the Fire. And then we can't go into Decode Talker Heat Soul, which is like, that would have been so much better if we actually could have went to Decode Talker Heat Soul, or if we would have drawn some type of... We never use Gazelle's effect. We could just use Gazelle's effect. I literally just noticed that we never use Gazelle's effect to summon. Crazy. Which means, actually, let me show you guys something else. If we would have summoned Fire to our opponent's side of the field, we could have added Gazelle into our hand, and our hand would have looked like this. So then, we just need to Sanctuary, send the Sunlight Wolf. It's really unfortunate we're doing... No, that does not work. Okay, I see it. We'll just link these two off into a Salamangreat Heat Leo. We'll trigger the effect of Marat Stalio and Gazelle. We'll bounce and then we'll add. There we go, guys. And then we'll link summon into a Raging Phoenix. We'll second link into our second Raging Phoenix. And Raging Phoenix will get us our choice, Salamangreat Rage or Salamangreat Roar. That one was crazy. That one was crazy. So I'd probably add Roar in this instance. In this particular instance, we'd have these three online and follow up Salamangreat Roar in Graveyard, Balinks to protect. We're actually really, really fine here, despite what some players may think. Salamangreat is kind of strong. And that's all that I have for Salamangreats, guys. Again, I will be posting some test hands on my Patreon. As a special thank you for helping me with my editors. Thank you guys so much. And if you want to see more amazing videos, you already know what to do. Be sure to check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one.